And welcome back to the Wolverine Live. I'm John Borton. We're going to be talking a lot of Michigan basketball tonight, along with a little Michigan football. As always, we have Tom Crawford here. You know him very well from these podcasts, these broadcasts. And Tom, what people don't know, I'm a lot of people about you, I'm guessing, is that you actually live you're Michigan grad, but you live a stone's throw away
Yeah.
from the Michigan State University campus in a very, very difficult week there this year. Tell us a little bit about what it has been like up there.
Well, it's surreal, whatever term you want to use. It's you can't believe it. I mean, I go back to Monday night and I got a text message, around 8:30, and then I got a police scanner link that was thrown at me, and I'm following what was going on, and you had varying reports, and it was active shooter. When you get active shooter, we've had a couple false alarms at our local high schools around here, but this was the real thing, and I heard sirens. I was downstairs in my man cave, but you can hear sirens. I went on my back deck, and there's helicopters coming over my house. I live about 1 mile north of the east side of the MSU campus, right, Hubbard Hall and Acres Hall, right down the road. And it was just, it was a sound that I hadn't heard, around here. I mean, this is a tight knit community. It's not, Greater Lansing is not all that big. The whole area is probably about a 500,000 people, and that's everything. And East Lansing is about 30,000. You got 50,000 on the campus, and it was frightening. And the fact that it went so long. I mean, I told myself that I'm not going to go to sleep until this guy is taken down, and
Mm.
that didn't happen until over there on Lake Lansing Road near Large Street when he took his own life over on over by the Bell Banish Welding Company. He walked from the MSU campus all the way, all the way over the north. That's like a 30-minute walk. I mean, it's and they're trying to recapture all the video and things like that. But the bottom line is, three MSU students lost their lives. Another five are in critical condition. They're having a vigil tonight over here at Sparty, and then walking over to the Rock, which is eastbound, and a lot of people out there. And it's like it causes for pause, John, like we've talked about in perspective. And I shared a picture that I saw at our Rock in Ann Arbor, um, that had Spartan Strong on it, so everybody's unified, uh, and which is important. And but I had a daughter. My wife graduated from Michigan State. My daughter graduated from Michigan State, and she's down at my daughter was down in Nashville at a conference, and she was upset. I mean, Berkey Hall is a big academic building. It's like it would be like Angel Hall, maybe not as big as Angel Hall on State Street in Ann Arbor, but every if you're a Michigan State student, you're typically going to have a class at Berkey Hall right across from the Peanut Barrel and on Grand River. And so alumni friends of mine and my daughter and my wife took classes there. It's glaring. And then the MSU Union, where there was another, where another student fell there, two over at Berkey and one at the MSU Union. That's literally where I grew up. I mean, my mom didn't like to cook, so we ate growing up in this town, we ate the MSU Union 4 or 5 times a week. It was crazy. And that's near and dear to me. So I'm a Michigan guy, Michigan grad. The rivalry is real with me, but I'm feeling for the green and white this week. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's such a strange week. You've got Michigan State that are supposed to play basketball on Saturday. There's a part of me that says, does it even mean anything on a
Yeah.
week like this? And my question to you would be, have you heard anything about whether or not that game, Michigan State's other game this week, has been canceled? Do you know if for sure that they'll play Saturday?
I don't know, and I was going to ask you that question, JB, from on the Ann Arbor side. Nothing has been, they're closing down, and there's no activity. I mean, Michigan State Minnesota game was supposed to be played tonight at the Breslin Center, and instead they're holding a vigil. There's no activities, there's no classes on campus until Monday, And I don't know how they're going to navigate this. I'm sure that the University of Michigan is yielding to Michigan State, and having them make the call on that regard as they should. They're the ones that are on dealing with the personal grief, and I don't know. I mean, it's that's not very far away, and
No.
it's I was thinking about that game, John. This is a strange time for the Michigan State rivalry. When you really think about it, you go back to last October, the tunnel situation, and some of the other, back and forth that Michigan State have had. It's you and I talk about it. It's a bad rivalry. It's a
Yep.
toxic rivalry, and now you have this horrific thing happen, and I'm hoping that at least goes away temporarily. But I think it's going to be a strange dynamic at Chrysler because I think you're going to have a Michigan crowd that is won't have the angst or the animosity towards Michigan State because I mean there's compassion there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there's that element, and then you have Michigan State. How are they going to navigate it? I mean, their kids got to be shook up. Is it going to galvanize them? Michigan State is on the uptick plane. Michigan is recently on the downward trend, wrong side of the bubble. It's really going to be a strange environment if it's played on Saturday night.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And you certainly would expect both teams to play hard, to compete hard, as they always do. But I would say the element, as far as I'm concerned, the element of disrespect that marks Michigan State football and basketball games should be completely off the table.
Yes, well stated.
Whether you
Yes,
have a moment of silence in Chrysler Center, or whatever they do to recognize the fact that something really awful has taken place, they should do that. The those fans that are there should, and I think will, if that game is played, just show the utmost respect for Tom Izzo, for that team. I get the fact of the rivalry. I understand all that, but we all realize that there are things way bigger than basketball and than Michigan State, and one of those we were reminded about this week.
yeah, well, very well stated, John. And all you got to do is, I mean, we got kids. I mean, you got kids that are going through school, and I mean, I mean, there's listeners that we have kids that are probably elementary school, middle school, and there's this incredible amount of anxiety right now. And the thing about a college campus, and when I walk the Diag in Ann Arbor, or if I'm walking up the campus, I mean, my wife and I walk Michigan State's campus in the summertime when it's empty out there, and it's just like it's just like it's a gorgeous campus. I mean, there's no
Mhm.
two ways
Yeah,
about it. And you walk
absolutely.
around, you walk down the Red Cedar and on the trails and by Spartan Stadium. And it's just this wonderful place, okay, of learning and youth. And when everybody went to college, it was the best time of their lives. And I think these kids know that too. But that's all been rocked, that's all just been rattled, and it's been ruined by a sick individual, and this stuff is happening all over. And it's like you cringe, when's the next shoe going to drop? But I do like how I'm confident. I agree with you. I'm confident that University of Michigan will handle this very well. I mean, remember the Virginia game? They wore t-shirts, and the football players that went down.
Mhm.
um Michigan, University of Michigan, I'm sure will make us proud, on how they handle this situation if it's played Saturday night. But I'm with you. I'm as puzzled that there hasn't been an announcement about that, because it's just a few days away.
I would think it would have to be Michigan State in conjunction with the Big Ten making any kind of call on that. And but either way, uh, we will express this, that there is no rivalry on this particular day. We are thinking of those that are hurting up in East Lansing, up at Michigan State, and we wish them our absolute best. Um, and that should just be across the entire two fan bases.
Yeah, very well stated. Yes.
So turning to what we usually talk about in this space, which of course is Michigan athletics, um, Michigan basketball, whether they play that game or they don't. Let me ask you this, Tom Crawford, flat out: is Michigan basketball done for the spring of 2023? And by that I mean, is there any hope of salvaging an NCAA tournament?
Well, in basketball terms, they're going to have to hit a three-quarter court shot. I mean, it's last night was pretty discouraging in a variety of ways. I mean, well, actually, let's go back to Saturday night. That missed opportunity to have a quad one win at home with Chrysler against a good team and leading for 34 minutes. I mean, it's something unravels or something with this. I mean, 7 times now Michigan has lost by 5 points or less, and you can go back to the Virginia game that I just talked about. You can go talk about the Kentucky game in London,
Mhm.
playing Carolina down in Charlotte. All these, other than the Arizona State game where they got hammered. I mean, they've been in the hunt, but they Iowa City, they just it just they don't execute on a disciplined basis offensively.
Right.
Okay. And it unravels offensively. I mean, the Virginia game was the same thing. I mean, Michigan had an opportunity to tie the game, I think. And it's a ill-fated shot, and Jet didn't even get it off. And with 8.2 seconds to go in the IU game, I think I'm saying to myself, and this is cynically, and I didn't mean to be negative. I said to myself, because I'm still recovering from COVID. I guess I'm almost done now, but I mean, I was not at the IU game, and I said this is going to be a 3-point shot by Jet. They only need one. They need a bucket to win the game,
Right.
and I knew myself that Hunter was not going to get a touch, and he did not get a touch. And I don't, there's probably a variety of reasons why that happens, not just the guards or the wing guys, but you just kind of foreshadow what happened. The same thing last night. I mean, Michigan had great opportunities. Will Cheddar had a dunk, and he misses a dunk, then he clanks 2 free throws. I mean, Doug McDaniel had the final possession. He's a point guard, and he turned the ball over. A forced drive by Jet Howard late in the game, and then same thing with Doug. And when Wisconsin goes like 10 minutes with no field goal, and you still don't win the game, this like goes back to Michigan going over 5 minutes, and not scoring against Indiana.
Yeah.
You can't do that. So, I mean, you can put the blame on coaching, you can put the blame on the players, but I think there's equal blame to go around. And it's just not a very good basketball team right now. And it's, to be quite honest with you, it's kind of discouraging moving forward because you don't know what's going to happen next year. I mean, they're going to have to go to square one. Is Jet Howard going to go early? I mean, it's like, it's going to be back to a portal situation? And then your trust in the discipline of this program in terms of growth and maturation is wavering right now, I think, for a lot of Michigan fans.
Yeah, I would be shocked at this point to see Jet Howard uh, try to jump to the NBA. I mean, with what he is, yes, he can shoot the ball. There's no question about that. But there's a lot of more aspects of his game that have to grow immensely.
But
And I think
we said that though, John.
I hear you. I
Remember
know it's
Taylor
coming.
Houston? And you're only worth what a perceived value is by all you gotta have is one team love you.
Yep.
And when I'm looking at, and I'm an NBA follower, and particularly from the college standpoint, who's going on. This guy's probably going to get drafted, and maybe the NBA is better for his game anyway. So I
Yep.
mean, that's why I think that I agree with you. He could use another year, but I would say it's 50-50 at best that he's coming back.
Well, if that's the case, then there are NBA teams that have um, great confidence in their ability to teach some things like defense and
Cheers.
and rebounding and defensive rebounding and a lot of other aspects of the game. I will just say this, hearkening back to that Indiana game, you were talking about, what we're talking about here, and you clicked them off with from the non-conference games to Indiana to Wisconsin. I would certainly throw Iowa in that hat. Michigan's inability to finish basketball games, and they can't do it. They're finding different ways of not doing it, but they're not doing it. And you think about that Indiana game, the scoreless final 5-12 of the game, and the fact that Michigan went 0 for 7 from the floor during that stretch, and that one of those shots, one, was Hunter Dickinson. You just have a Michigan offense that is not setting itself up for success, not just not having success, but not putting themselves in position to have it. And we heard after that game a little spillover of frustration from one Juwan Howard, who knows how to protect his players. I guarantee you, if he gets the feeling that you are unfairly singling out or criticizing his players, he'll come after you now. He will stiff arm that in a hurry. But after that Indiana game, you heard Juwan Howard saying basically our guys are freelancing. They are not doing some of the things that we're asking them to do. To me, that says, that just screams two things. The head coach's increasing frustration about these kind of losses, and secondly, the fact that they do not have the level of control at this point to get some of these players who are handling the basketball and getting them into what they want done to the level that, okay, you're executing the plays like you're asked to do.
Yeah, it's fun. You mentioned about Juwan protecting his players, and I remember asking him a question. It was, I wasn't trying to be critical of his perimeter defense, but Jackson State was one of the worst teams in college basketball, and they made that game interesting right down the stretch. So I asked him about, and he got a little chippy defensive, and I understand it was early in the year. But it sounds like to me, now I wasn't there at the IU game, but it sounds like he's running out of patience for this team. But at the same time, there's another aspect of last night that really bothers me. It's Hunter Dickinson, and I've talked to Hunter Dickinson a couple times about this whole thing he had with Michigan State and the rivalry and bantering with the fans. And now he's calling Wisconsin people scumbags on his podcast. And then he wears a mask going into the game like he's going to steal one. And then he's waving his arms. You're barely above 500. Okay. At halftime, taunting the fans. What's he doing in the second half? 3 points. 0 for 3 from field goals. He had 3 for 4 from the line. What's this dude doing? This is a bad look for Michigan basketball, John. To me, it's despicable. And then Jet Howard, free Juwan. Why do you do this stuff? And I've asked a lot of former Michigan players about it, and and I can't relate to it because I never played at that level. But is there just this innate need that you have to, to fire yourself out? You have to get in this banter with the opposition. It seems like when you're poking the bear, you're going to just stir up the opposition, and Hunter's getting back down the entire, in that first half. He didn't play that well. He's not that good. And he continued, and they're losing. So I don't, and not a good look for Michigan basketball last night. I'm going to be perfectly transparent about it.
Yeah, I think the frustration level for everyone rises when they're losing. I think honestly, some of the stuff that Hunter Dickinson does would be regarded as, that Hunter, that swagger that he's got going. Yes, he is that guy, he doesn't mind playing the villain, and look at him get under Tom Izzo's skin now, or look at him whip up the Wisconsin fans, and he says that, that gets him going. But you know what? You start losing, and those same things are regarded differently. I think, as far as the ski mask, no, you don't, especially,
Especially,
especially for two reasons.
yeah,
You're going poorly anyway. You should be just locked in, focused, all that stuff. And with what took place in the last
exactly,
Michigan Wisconsin game,
exactly.
leave the extracurriculars, leave the
Mhm.
colorful description of the Badgers. Zip it on that, and don't do those things.
Yeah,
But
no,
I, I,
I agree
I
with
think
you.
some of these things get they grow bigger because you're losing. I think,
Well, I don't you know what?
but
I don't like it when they're winning. I don't like it when they're winning. I was
mhm,
in 1993, I was at the Michigan State game at Breslin. Michigan won a tough game, and no, I know I was near the Michigan bench, and I heard some I heard some stuff that I never thought I'd hear in my life. In the 1990s? I mean, I thought I was in the 1950s,
yeah,
coming from, the Michigan State student section towards the Fab Five, okay?
mhm, yep,
But I don't like Jalen Rose rubbing his butt on the S. I don't I'm not into that stuff. I guess maybe I'm a Jalen Hurts guy. Jalen Hurts, the quarterback of the Eagles, when he was at Alabama, when he was at Oklahoma, the guy was a class act. I mean, he got benched at halftime, but he didn't wasn't bitter about it. I guess that's my ultimate template of how I would like players of my school to perform. Yeah, I'm voicing my opinion, and I know your point about winning and losing, but I didn't like. There was a lot of the Fab Five era I didn't like. I just
yep.
didn't like. I'm going to
Well,
be totally honest with you, and I understood a little bit more of it later, and but I didn't like it.
yep.
Still don't like it.
And you've got some company there. My only point is, and I am with anyone who says, man, at this point, this team needs to just lock in, zip it, and play ball, and play better ball than they have been. But I also understand that there's going to be a certain amount of, um, if Michigan had lost a big football game back in the 80s or the 70s, it would be Bo this, Bo that. He's not his offense, you know, and look at him crying to the officials. But when things are going well, and you're up on Ohio State, and you take that headset and you slam it to the ground, then you're going to get, that Bo, he's fiery. We love our football coach. So I do think that there's a certain amount of, okay, you get away with a little more when you've got it going, but boy, when it's like this particular year for Michigan basketball, come on, fellas, you just
It's a train wreck.
put
It,
that
it,
away
you know,
and move forward.
I go
Um,
back to I go back to that. I mean, when Karis LeVert got hurt, what was that bad? The last time Michigan was not in the NCAA tournament was, I think, the 14-15 season. Then they got into the play-in game the following year when they beat Tulsa down in Dayton. That game I was down. I think I'm trying to do the timeline here. So it's and so, but that Karis LeVert injury was huge.
mhm,
That was
sure.
that killed that team. And there was some other. I think Derek Walton got hurt too, and I think they were without both of them.
Yep.
And you know, but and so that was more acceptable, and they didn't get in the tournament. But this season is part of me says it can't end fast enough, and I love it. I equally love Michigan basketball and Michigan football. I might be different in this regard. It's like the same. It's like the
Okay.
same percentage of love for both of them. And so when Michigan basketball isn't doing well, it matters to me, and I want them to do well.
So then, they do have to finish the season.
Yeah.
So we can't have that cancellation.
Yeah.
What is it in your mind with this team that can be fixed, whether regardless of record, regardless of whether they make the tournament, regardless if they make that run in the Big Ten tournament? What can be fixed about this team in the days and weeks ahead so that they're more ready to go at it successfully in 23-24? I've got my own ideas about this, but I want to hear yours first.
Well, I mean, I'll start out with this. Let's label the word effort. I mean, I think there's around 380 teams in Division One basketball, right? And Wisconsin was ranked 357 in offensive rebound.
Hmm.
Okay. They had 15 offensive boards to Michigan's 8 last night. And that's just effort or lack thereof. Because when you're defending, I mean, it's called boxing out. I mean, this is fundamental. This is grade school basketball. And you shouldn't really give up any offensive rebounds if you're doing everything fundamentally correct, the way you were brought up, from middle school on or whatever. You box out, use your hips and go to the ball and grab the ball, and because you have the advantage because you're inside of your offensive guy, hopefully. Okay. But the amount of putbacks, I mean, was crazy. And then the other thing, so I'm focusing on the defense right now. I saw a lot of dribble drive penetration from some, let's just say, very unathletic Wisconsin. I mean, Michigan has six guys on their team are in the top 100. We're rating the top 100 coming into this program. Okay. Wisconsin has zero in that category. So don't tell me that Wisconsin is more talented than Michigan. Michigan's more talented, raw talented than Wisconsin. And so the lack of effort defensively bothers me. And then flipping over on the offensive side of the ball, which I will tell you what, when they play Michigan State, you think it's hard to execute against Indiana or Penn State or some of these other teams. Michigan State is probably the next to Rutgers. Rutgers and Michigan State are the two best defensive teams in the. If they don't figure out schematically what they need to do offensively, it's going to be a freaking nightmare. This is going to be an 8 to 12 point loss when they play Michigan State at Chrysler, because they got to figure this thing out offensively, because it just seems like precision pandemonium out there. And I don't know actually what they're trying to accomplish. I like when Hunter's in the block on the right, on the right block going left, like it worked against Indiana, but figure out how to get him the ball. At least he gets a touch on the final possession in a game winning situation like he would have had against Indiana.
Yeah, I think a lot of the things that you touched on are ones that I would fully concur with. And the question is, how do you solve it? How do you go about? There's a part of me that wants Gene Hackman to be hired as an assistant coach down the stretch and tell the official that my team's on the floor.
Yeah,
Because it's one of those deals where, okay, how do these guys learn? If the head coach does not feel like his guys are running his plays, and the assistant coaches don't feel like they're doing the job out there in terms of carrying out what they're asked to do, if they're seeing something with their own eyes and saying, okay, no, I'm going to switch things up, then how do they learn? How do they learn unless they get pulled? And then, okay, so the argument against that is, yeah, well, they're desperate to win. They can't be setting their guys aside. You know what? If these guys are going to learn how to win and learn how to finish and learn how to do what the coaches are asking them to do, then pull them out. Pull them out. Can it be worse down the stretch than it has been in the toss-up games? I don't think it can. Yeah, we got excited about the 3-game win streak, and there was a chance to push it to 5, and it could have been. And at that point, everybody be feeling different. But, if somebody you mentioned effort and rebounding effort. If you're not getting that kind of effort, if you're not getting that kind of results, then there it is, boys. There's the bench. And you can sit there and learn and watch other people play hard until you decide you don't like sitting there anymore. And then you have to go out and really get it done.
Yeah. I
So that I don't I do not see a lot of that sort of teaching with the really holding people accountable. If Juwan Howard doesn't feel like his guys are doing what he wants, then find somebody who will.
Well, great points, John. And when I think of Will Cheddar, I know that T. Will was had a bruised knee and stuff like that. I go, okay, so this is Will Cheddar's opportunity. And he had his moments. I mean, I think he plays hard. And there's
Hmm.
another interesting combination that jumps off the screen is for me is when Terrace Reed is in there with Hunter. And when they're in somewhat of a sync defensively, there were a couple plays where they comboed to make it literally impossible for Wisconsin to even get a shot off. And Terrace has actually hit a few free throws lately. And yeah, he's raw,
Hmm.
but he plays hard. I like Terrace Reed. I like Will Cheddar. I like like you said, this season's really not going anywhere. I mean, those are two freshmen. Well, actually, Will's a second year guy, but um, they're young players, and that's they could have integral parts next year. And so I'd go with that. I mean, because to be honest with you, I think, and I'm sure that a coach doesn't accept this in his own mind. I mean, they could get to 12 wins in the Big Ten. I said they're in. They have to win 4 of these last 5. I don't think that's going to happen when you got road games in Champaign and Bloomington, and you got to go to the rack.
Yep.
But and let alone play Michigan State at home. I think they're good for one more win. I think this is a 9-11 regular season ending and 15-16 overall heading to the Chicago for the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah. Well, and that's not going to get it done because this team has also shown no signs of being able to make the kind of run in the Big Ten tournament that
Right.
would get them over the top. So you look at that schedule, and I think you're right. I think I could see a scenario where they really came up. Uh, Big in one of those road games, or maybe beat both Michigan State and Wisconsin at home. But more than likely, that one win you could be right on, and you know that will have Michigan going into an off season where there are a lot of people that look at this as a lost season, as it could have been so much more. And with that, what the talk then becomes. I'm I look at this in this way to not to make excuses, not to do anything but cast a little perspective on this whole situation. You like to I hear people talking about John Beeline this, John Beeline that. John Beeline coached 41 seasons of college basketball, the last dozen of them at the University of Michigan. So, in other words, when he came to Michigan, he was in his 30th season of coaching college basketball. Juwan Howard is in season 4. Season 4, folks. And I get it. Everybody wants um, results. Everybody wants to see he's been able to recruit. He's got his guys. People have problems with the roster construction, and I think there's some things that he might want to take a look at in terms of doing differently. But I do think that this is a head coach that is learning how to be a head coach at this level. And he basically conceded that fact in saying, talking about him having the learning mindset, about him going to Jay Wright, the former Villanova coach, and sitting down and trying to pick his brain, and certainly learning from those guys, even on his bench as assistant coaches who have been there and done that. So Tom Crawford, how would you at this point judge the job that Juwan Howard's doing, and I guess set it against all of the high expectations for any Michigan basketball team.
Yeah, you framed that very well, John. Because I forgot about them. When you think about Beeline's longevity before he even arrived in Ann Arbor, what 2008 or whatever it was. It's amazing, and he was always a head coach. Okay, and that's very bizarre. But one thing I am impressed with Juwan is he self scouts himself, and he's transparent with himself in front of us too in the media. I need to do a better job of this and that, and he talks. He brought up the situation of misjudgment of behavior, obviously last year in Madison, and he owned that, and I'm impressed with that. And he's got a good staff around him, and he's got a Hall of Fame coach on the staff, and Phil Martelli. And so you're right. A good perspective check on that. It's in his fourth year, but when we go into next year, I'd like to see some more progress in that regard, where optically what we see on the court looks like this team is a little bit more organized and not discombobulated the way it looks right now. When you watch them in the half court set offensively, it's like, wow, are we down at the Hoover Street IM just playing freelance?
Mm.
And you get that you get that look. They give you that look like there's not any plan. But maybe that's just not the players executing. But yeah, I mean, I think Juwan will be under the microscope next year, and I think Michigan athletics is on the threshold of potential major change. To be honest with you, I mean, if things don't work out for basketball, maybe Ward Manuel or Juwan Howard won't be here next year. Ward Manuel is an X factor right there. I mean, he's disappeared. He hasn't signed his coach. His football coach. I still haven't figured that one out. And then I'm with Jim Harbaugh. This Michigan football team could win a national championship next year. Okay, which would be great.
Mm-hmm.
They could. They have maybe not as good a chance as Georgia and Bama, but they're close. And they could lose a regular season game and win a national championship. And I think they might lose a regular season game and still get in the CFP and maybe in the national championship game. And I'm going to make a weird, well, not projection, but something to ponder, that Michigan a year from now might be having new football coach, basketball coach, and AD after next year. If certain ways. Yeah. Because I think if Harbaugh wins the national championship, he's gone. He's going to the NFL. And Michigan can win a national championship in football.
All right. Well, I don't see any way that Juwan Howard's not here. Even after
next year,
after next year, okay. I think he'll have certainly more reign than that. Jim Harbaugh, that could be the self-pulling the plug, like we've gone through the last two seasons. So no guesses there. But
I got a question for you, John. Though, I mean, with Juwan Howard, what if they have a similar season to this year, and they don't make the tournament next year? You're still saying his seat is not hot at all?
One, I don't see any way that happens, given the experience that all the inexperienced starters from this year will have going into next year. But if it did happen, would the seat be hotter? Yeah, I think so. I think people would then, and it's partly in how it happens. If it continues to be that the head coach is saying things about, well, they're not doing what I'm asking at times, then, well, wait a minute, there was a year to fix that. Then it's a different discussion. But I just don't see. I think that this program is going to go through a natural growth period, both players and the head coach in some ways that he will draw from this. He's learned some hard lessons already while he's been here. I think this is going to be another one. And I think you'll see a different product next year. If you don't, then all bets are off. Uh, so hey, before I let you go, we're coming down in the fourth quarter. I want to I'm gonna pass on one of the football topics. We'll save it for another time that I was thinking about, but I do want to know, Tom Crawford, which of we know that Michigan Athlon came out here just in the last few days and ranked Michigan as the best transfer school as far as its results this year
Yeah,
and
yeah.
potential impact. So my question to you would be, of the seven guys that, and understand, I mean, there are teams that are bringing in 15, 16, 18 transfers to Michigan seven, and Michigan was still regarded that high. Which of these guys will have your attention the most in spring football that you think could make one of the bigger impacts?
Well, I mean, the names are flipping are blank right now. But the transfer from the Stanford offensive lineman, can't think of his name. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, Blake Nugent or
Yeah,
Drake
yeah,
Nugent.
the center.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's huge. I mean, I'm looking at that. Is it going to be another Olu where he's going to come in and seamlessly um, fit right in culturally and dynamically with this offensive line? Because to me, if Michigan, it starts at center, and Michigan's had some great center play in the last few years. That kid Nugent is the key guy. I mean,
Mm.
and that's where it starts. And this could this be the third consecutive year for Joe Moore, offensive line, of the year? I mean, that would be great. And because if this offensive line performs the way I expect it to, I mean, and I'm anticipating, that whole chemistry is going to be seamless, and that's the pretty crazy expectation. But um, wow, this could
Yeah.
be a great year. I mean,
Mhm.
this could be an incredibly dynamic offense that would be hard to shut down for any team on the schedule.
Very good. And I'll take one from the other side of the
Okay.
line of scrimmage just to toss out there. Um, Watch out for Ernest Hausman, the
Yes, the Nebraska.
linebacker out of
Yeah.
Nebraska,
Yeah.
who stepped into that lineup and started, I believe it was 9 games last season,
Yeah.
and really got better and better. He had 10 tackles against Michigan in that game and a sack on J.J. McCarthy. I talked to my counterpart over at Nebraska, and that would be Sean Callahan, who is he's actually the publisher of
Mhm.
Nebraska's online site, and go check that out. But he said that of all Nebraska's freshmen last year, Ernest Hausman showed the most promise. And so you take that year of experience and you throw him into a situation where Michigan's a little bit thin at linebacker. I think the opportunity to get in there and really play some meaningful football is going to be there. So those are just two names that for folks to watch out for.
Yeah.
We will certainly revisit football again and again. We've got spring ball right around the corner, and the spring game April 1st. So that end of it never really stops, as we have said many times. Tom Crawford, I really appreciate you joining us tonight, and your insight, your sensitivity, and all for what has happened, transpired this week up at Michigan State, along with your thorough basketball and football expertise. We will do this again real soon, and just thanks for doing this.
Well, I appreciate having me on. It's a privilege, John. Look forward to talking about Michigan basketball next week. Hey, maybe we'll be talking about a big victory over Michigan State. Let them prove me wrong that they can take on Sparty and get it done. But should be an interesting next few games.
Good enough.